Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you very much, choir. Asanteni sana, mnaweza wapigia makofi. Msipowapigia watajipigia. That's the way to go. Yes, it's beautiful. All right. So I'd like to welcome Hilary Wakungu from KIPPRA to give us a recap of Day. Karibu sana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. I'm going to take you through the recap for yesterday's proceedings. And yesterday we had three presentation under three themes. The first theme was on the building a strong innovation system. The first under this theme, innovation under the theme on that the media coverage on ST&I for people living with disabilities was that besides inclusion of people living with disabilities, is the media that there is need for participation on and ensuring that the growth of ST&I is geared towards alleviating or improving their well-being. In addition, there is need for the government and partners to be more proactive in accelerating innovations to assist the people living with disabilities. Secondly, on health system, there was proceedings that technological innovations are at the center of success in implementing projects and programs in the health sector. And here it was reported that there is technology has been used properly to ensure that there is HIV testing kits, pap smear, hand hygiene, and other products. Also, gaps in Kenya healthcare is general adoption of preventive measures for disease prevention adoption during COVID-19. And this was also followed by a big gap in investment has been noticed and in the health sector, primarily due to funding constraints. And of course, interventions to increase return advocated for primary health and primary health. The official opening ceremony highlight Dr. Rose Ngugi, who is our executive director of KIPPRA, highlighted the purpose of the conference. One was being to share knowledge, ideas, experiences, and learn from each other on ST&I. She also noted that the conference is in line with KIPPRA mandate under the KIPPRA Act, which was to organize symposia, conferences, workshops, and other meetings to promote the exchange of views on issues relating to public policy research and analysis. She also outlined the main theme of the conference, which was ST&I and its role in improving quality of life by enhancing the delivery of the Big Four agenda. Thereafter, our well-able Dr. Linda Msumba, who is the board chair of KIPPRA, highlighted that science is applied to improve quality of life, to solve societal problems in health, water, agriculture, manufacturing, and energy, among others. And also science helps in evidence generation to inform policy, And also, she encouraged researchers and other innovators to reevaluate the role of traditional technologies in informing modern technology. And in this case, she highlighted that the role of elders in locating water services in community has been dropped and it needs to be looked at. And also importance of education system in the developing of human capital in ST&I. Dr. Sarah Ruto, who is the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education, highlighted that to promote growth and economic transformation, there's need to stir growth of relevant skills and knowledge in education, as it is a prerequisite to high productivity. And also, she highlighted there's need to expand higher education capacities, especially for the working age adults. Under the role of ST in enhancing food security and nutrition in Kenya, Dr. Oscar Magenya, who is the Director of Research and Innovation in the Ministry of Health, pointed out that ICT has broadened access to information with private sector playing a key role in creating markets, addressing gender markets, and value addition in the sector. Keynote address by the chief guest, who was Honorable Dr. Eric Wafuho, Chief Administrative Secretary in the National Treasury and Planning, who was representing Honorable Ambassador Kuru Yatani, who is the Cabinet Secretary in the National Treasury and Planning, highlighted that the government under Vision 2030 has committed to intensify the commitment of ST&I across the three pillars, which is the social, economic, and also political. Kenya is halfway through the implementation of Vision 2030, and this knowledge advance is key in increasing productivity in any sector within the country. One of the key highlights is that Kenya is lagging behind in funding of R&D, which was identified, and ST&I policy was to mobilize the 2% government revenue to fund R&D. Under this, the positive notice is that 323 million has been allocated for R&D in this financial year. And finally, he applauded KIPPRA for holding this conference because it will help bridge the gap that is existing at the moment. In the second theme of the day, the key highlights were on the role of ICT from people living with disability perspective. ST&I can ensure non-visual access and also enable artificial learning, thus making learning effective. The third theme was on cross-cutting issues, and here the first issue was conversed was on gender, PWD youth, and key highlights included that this need for creating awareness of the gender gap in terms of ST&I, the need for continuous provision of infrastructure, skilled trainers, especially in TVET, and also there is ensuring learning in accessing and inclusive of people living with disability. On the hand side is that there is lack of disaggregated data on different categories of disabilities, which various stakeholders need to work on so that they can include and data statistic where of data protection in ST and sector. KLIs where there is need for government and partners to promote education, awareness on data protection, ethics and legal uses of data, as well as build solutions for social economic development, and it should be founded on trust. And data is the oil of data is the new oil, which will enable these systems to work. On the availability and use of ST&I statistics, that these ST&I related data are important in the formulation of public policies, and also it is critical to make this data readily available so that it can be accessed by everyone on open data platform. One of the things that was also highlighted was that on big data, and it was that this big data is in volume of data which explores on new methods of data mining to obtain more data and a variety of diversity of this data. And Kenya has not aggregated it, has not decentralized its data so that it can be used for meaningful analysis and also making informed policy decisions in the country. And there was no, is used appropriately. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that detailed recap. Hilary Okungo from KIPPRA, Mpigeni Makofi, tafadhali. Appreciate him for the proper recap he's given us at this particular moment. As I told you earlier on, this conversation is also going on social media, and I like your participation. So in regards to what's going to be presented in this upcoming if you wonder what you've been doing for the past 25 years of your life, yes, I need you to tweet it. Tweet that, all right? And the hashtag is KIPPRA Conference 2021 and tag KIPPRA at KIPPRA Kenya, all right? And the least you can do is also follow us on our social media platforms because we'll finish the conference today, but the talks will continue. And for you to keep yourself updated, apart from visiting our social media platforms, it's also important for you to be on the socials. It's very critical for us to push this agenda on the social media. With that said, I'd like to introduce the first plenary of the final day of the conference, plenary session 6.1. It will be chaired by Dr. Duncan Ochieng, Director, National Disaster Management. To welcome right now, Dr. Ochieng. Karibu sana, mpigeni makofi akikuja. He'll chair the first plenary session, which will tackle matters building resilience around ST&I. Karibu daktari.
Honorable leaders, members of the diplomatic corps present, session panelists, KIPPRA leadership, distinguished conference participants, all protocols of sound, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. My name is Dr. Duncan Ochieng, the Director, National Disaster Management Unit. For a brief on what National Disaster Management Unit is, the unit was established in the year 2013 through a presidential directive to be able to provide overall leadership, command, and control of disaster management efforts in Kenya. The unit is also responsible for capacity building for all personnel in all the ministries, departments, and agencies, monitoring and evaluation of disaster risk reduction programs and activities, and carrying out research in emergency and disaster management. Today, it is noted that there have been milestones achieved with a lean, though very able team. We also appreciate that there's a lot yet to be done. This session on building resilience provides us with an opportunity to engage in and sustain conversation around issues to do with disaster preparedness. And more so, we are going to look at the research and impact on COVID-19 pandemic, and also a strong innovation, building of strong innovation systems. It is. Thank you. And disaster, and it is upon this background that we will then be able to sustain, enhance, and validate this conference theme, which is science, technology, and innovation in enhancing delivery of the Big Four development agenda. The disaster risk management is cyclic in nature, and it comprises of 4 major phases. That is prevention or mitigation. We have preparedness, response, and recovery. While it may be public knowledge that there has been a paradigm shift from disaster response to disaster risk reduction, as heavily enshrined in the Sendai Framework of Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030, it breaks no bone to reiterate that our focus must be on reduction of existing disaster risks and prevention of new risks. This requires us to make consideration of the risk reduction within the social and economic activities and an understanding of the linkages between patterns of human behaviors and vulnerability to disaster risk. The 4 priority areas of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030 in form as we intend. We will have a question and answer session afterwards, and thereafter we'll be able to share your comments and questions on the chat, and also for those who are following virtually, we'll be able to at least address your concerns. Now, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I will now take this opportunity to invite the panelists who will be given 5 minutes to present or to defend their case. And first of all, we'll start with Gladys Kitani. Gladys Kitani will be presenting on building strong innovation systems, and this is going to be physical. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome our first panelist to be able to discuss this topic with us. Welcome, Gladys Kitani.
Thank you. Slide. And I'm presenting just one thing. Thank you so much. My name is Gladys Kitani. I'm Manager Innovation from the Kenya Revenue Authority. So today I'll present on building a strong innovation system, a case of the Kenya Revenue Authority. So next slide, please. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'll give a brief introduction. I'll talk about our innovation journey, the KRA innovation process, key innovations implemented, impact of innovation on customs and tax administration. And the basic idea is just to share our learnings, to even get ways of improving from your own experience if you also have innovation processes or innovation functions in your organizations. So next slide, please. I'll highlight what KRA is about, but I'm sure most of you know KRA. So we were established by an Act of Parliament in 1995, and we are charged with the responsibility of collecting revenues on behalf of the government of Kenya. Next slide. So, in order to effectively deliver on the organization's mandates, it's important for KRA to be innovative. And there are two key reasons why this is so. First of all, there's need to meet the ever-increasing targets as a result of the need to meet the national budget, because the national budget keeps increasing. So therefore, you have to be innovative in the way definitely spend less. So now I'll talk about the innovation function, which was institutionalized in 2016, and the aim. The slide before this. Yeah. So the mission of the innovation function is to promote an innovative and transformative culture that is customer focused for an enhanced tax-based expansion. And our vision is to provide an enabling environment that harnesses creative ideas to transform tax administration. So what does innovation mean to us? Innovation is a word that is always being thrown around. Some people find it fancy, but really, what does innovation mean to us as a public sector institution? Innovation to us is the process of implementing new ideas to create value for the organization. And this can be in the form of products, can be in the form of processes, or can be in the form of business concepts or strategies. So it's always good to endeavor to improve, and you improve in order to create value for your customers. You improve in order to save costs, as I had earlier mentioned. And if you stay at the same place, you get comfortable. And we all know that comfort is the enemy of change or progress. If you are comfortable driving your Probox, you won't want to, or you won't find yourself upgrading to a double cab or a pickup despite improvement in your business. So it's always good to endeavor to improve so as to add value. And at KRA, our model is a bit different. We have an employee-driven approach. We recognize that, yes, everyone can have ideas or suggestions on how we can deliver our services better. But our employees come first because they interact with the taxpayers. And number two, they are the ones who they're involved in the day-to-day running of activities in their functional areas, so they know where the shoe pinches the most, and they're therefore better placed to come up with innovations to improve customer service, to improve the processes, to improve strategies, etc. And we all know that if you empower your employees, you'll make them happy, and this will lead to increased productivity. And increase in productivity definitely means improved performance or increased performance. And improved performance means happier customers, and this means a prosperous nation in the case of public sector as well as private as well. I mean, okay, so we have three main thematic areas. The first one is customer service. So we innovate to improve our interaction with our customers. We also innovate to improve tax, or to ensure that there's tax-based expansion. We don't want the common wananchi to be constantly complaining that we are increasing taxes, that we are introducing new forms of taxes, and yet there are niche areas of contributing to the one is process innovation. This is basically the engineering of internal processes to ensure efficiency. Next slide, please. So, as I had earlier mentioned, the innovation function was formed in 2016, and upon formation, we developed the key strategic documents in line with the organization's strategic plan. Then we proceeded with formation of procedure manuals, intellectual property rights policy, considering innovation is something that if well managed, then you'll benefit from it. So you need to manage it and you need to protect it. And if you have an approach that is employee driven, you want your employees to feel satisfied and to know that indeed what they have come up with is well protected. Then we established a platform to basically manage the innovation process. I'll show you the platform. It can be accessed, by the way, by anyone. Then we proceeded to now culture-related programs or awareness programs. Then after having the awareness programs, we then started processing of ideas received from the Innovate platform. The platform is called Innovate for possible implementation. So the Innovate platform is open to both employees and also external stakeholders, which include organizations and members of the public. So our innovation process, next slide, please. So our innovation process borrows heavily from best practice, especially public sector organizations. So the first process is actually ideation. So best practice recommends you ideate, you prototype or pilot, then you implement. And that is what we follow. So next slide, please. So I'll just mention some of the key innovations that we've implemented at KRA. Then I'll show you our platform. So apart from the core systems, I'll just the first one is a mobile application which was launched sometime last year. We want to
Gladys just hastened the process.
Thank you. So we have a mobile application. We also have a USSD for people who don't have a phones. Then we also leverage on data. So we've put in place a data warehouse and business intelligence system, and we are also collaborating with third parties or external organizations, because you cannot innovate. You cannot innovate in a silo. So we've put in place system integrations, and as you've realized, filing usually gets easier with years. So this year you will find that you are not required to input a lot of information, and it's because of the integrations that we've put in place. Then when it comes to key processes, we've adopted a data-driven tax-based expansion program, and this was actually under innovation. Then we've had several process engineering projects that has resulted in improved processes. Thank you. So please, next slide. So I'll just show you our platform. Next, please.
Summarize, please.
Yes, I'm done. I'm almost done, actually. So this is the Innovate platform. A slide before this. So this is the Innovate platform, and as I had mentioned, it's open to everyone, our employees and also members of the public, and it can be accessed on or at innovation.kra.go.ke. Next slide. So the impact innovation has had on tax and customs administration are as follows. The first one is increased innovation culture, which we measure annually. Then number two, it has led to improved processes, leading to increased efficiency, improved customer service, and also cost saving. Yes, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. So the final call is just to encourage public sector organizations to embrace innovation and to work with both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders in the innovation process, because it's only that you will improve delivery of services to your customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gladys, for such a wonderful presentation. You have heard from the Kenya Revenue Authority that they are innovating on the areas of customer service. Constant complaints are being minimized. And again, the process of innovation ensures that there is efficiency in service delivery. KRA is very important for the sustainability of this nation. We do lose both life and property, and in so doing, we are likely not to have a sustainable revenue base to be able to carry out our development projects. That is very important to us. Having listened to that, then it is important for us again to come Boniface Wanyama is going to present to us on research and impact on COVID-19 pandemic. The research and impact on COVID-19 pandemic, this is going to be virtual. So let us have Boniface Wanyama on.
Chair, I beg to interrupt
for that guidance. Well, we will have to continue, and I want to thank everyone for your time and also being here today. Again, allow me to briefly add to that. Disaster preparedness is something that did not start yesterday. If we go back to the Bible, you will realize that in Genesis chapter 6, verse 14 to 24, God commanded Noah to build an ark in preparation for the impending floods. This is part of preparedness. And in the same book of Genesis, chapter 41, verse 1 to 57, the king of Egypt had a dream that was interpreted by Joseph, who was then in prison, to mean an impending 7 years of bumper harvest and 7 years of famine. So as part of preparedness, we saw Noah build an ark, and the rest is history. Again, there were 7 years of bumper harvest and 7 years of famine in Egypt, but the people did not starve to death due to the preparedness measures that Joseph recommended to the king. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that the government of Kenya has made tremendous efforts in terms of disaster preparedness in the country, whose expected outcome is the substantial reduction of disaster risk losses in the lives and the social, economic, and environmental assets of our communities. Since independence in 1963, Kenya has faced the challenge of how to properly manage the recurring and new disaster risk due to inconsistency in disaster risk governance, which include the lack of a harmonized legislative, policy, and institutional framework in disaster risk management. This has seen the country operate under a fragmented disaster risk reduction architecture. Currently, we have various agencies that are charged with the management of disasters in the country. We have the National Disaster Management Unit, which provides the overall leadership in terms of disaster management. We have the National Disaster Operations Center in charge of resource mobilization and response during emergencies. We have got the National Drought Management Authority, which is specifically concerned with management of drought issues in the country. We have got other disaster risk management entities in the ministries, like the Ministry of Health as one. The Kenya Defense Forces has got the Disaster Response Unit. We have got Kenya Meteorological Department, Government Chemist, which is now the focal point for implementation of the Chemical Weapon Convention. We have got the National Commission for Science and Technology, which is the focal point for the implementation of Biological and Toxins Weapon Convention. We also have the Nuclear Power Energy Agency, the Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority, both meant to provide guidance on the approach to radiological and nuclear emergencies. We also have the Directorate of Peace Building and Disaster Response in the Ministry of Interior, among others. Now, if the trend is to continue, whereby we establish hazard-specific institutions, then this is not going to be very good for the nation. Why? Because should there be any kind of event that requires the intervention of the government, and such event is qualified or quantified to an extent that it is a disaster, then we are likely to come up with an agency or an authority to deal with that. For example, if we have a locust infestation, then definitely we are likely to have a locust management authority. If we have building collapsing, we can have a building collapsing management authority. If we have COVID-19, we can have COVID management authority. Floods, we can have flood management authority, among other emerging other hazards. So this is not very good for the country. So we need to put together solid evidence that would negate this trend and channel disaster risk management conversations towards evidence-based policies. The call for harmonization of DRM policy, legislative and institutional framework in Kenya is the premise for strengthening of disaster risk governance in Kenya and thereafter enhancing disaster preparedness. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I now call upon the panelists from St. John's Ambulance, Mr. Fred Majiwa, to present to us a discussion on resilience and more so disaster resilience in the country. If we can have Mr. Fred Majiwa, then I'll be able to give him.